Hello my babies, welcome back to another video. In this video today we have a pretty heavy topic. We're going to be talking about my binge eating disorder. I just want to throw a trigger warning out there. I know that this could be a pretty sensitive topic for some people, so I just want to be mindful of everybody's mental health. We're going to cover a few different things in this video today. We're going to talk about my personal story, the facts and statistics of eating disorders, help resources, and myths. Let's start with what binge eating disorder is. According to nationaleatingdisorders.org, binge eating disorder is a severe, life-threatening, and treatable eating disorder characterized by recurrent episodes of eating large quantities of food, a feeling of loss of control during the binge, experiencing shame, distress, or guilt afterwards, and not regularly using unhealthy compensatory? Yeah, that's how you say that. Measures to counter the binge eating. Wow, that was a lot to say. Let me get a drink of water after that. A lot of people confuse binge eating disorder with overeating. We'll get into that later when we get into the myths, but they aren't the same thing. Let's get into my personal experience with it, shall we? We're gonna start this story from when I was in college, because when I started college is around the same time I started working out and lifting. So when I first started working out, I did the typical healthy and restrictive type of dieting, which almost always led to me cheating or failing. So basically it was yo-yo dieting. In 2015, I did my first bikini competition. Afterwards, the rebound was hell, man. It was just hell. So during the show, I was obviously on a really strict caloric deficit. That's just what bodybuilders do when they're getting ready for a show. That's just the way it is. You're basically starving yourself. I never wanted to admit that when I was prepping, but like you basically are. And I was on prep for 6 months. So that's half a year of being in a caloric deficit. That really f***ed up my hormones. When you are in a caloric deficit for an extended amount of time, your hormones can get all f***ed up, man. So my leptin and ghrelin levels were just out of whack. Like, not that I ever got them checked, but I'm sure if I would have, they would have been crazy out of whack. Just by my habits, I could tell that they were. I didn't really need to get them checked. I could just tell. And if you don't know, leptin is the satiety hormone, which basically controls how you feel satisfied when you eat. Ghrelin is the hunger hormone, so that's what lets you know that you're hungry. Leptin lets you know that you're satisfied. Ghrelin lets you know you're hungry. So I ended up gaining, I think it was about 30 pounds. I started binging. It was really bad, and I never saw it coming, to be honest. I would binge on anything and everything. I never ever felt satisfied. I could eat so much. Literally one time I ate an entire pizza, 6 donuts, and a Dairy Queen Blizzard all in one sitting, all at one time. I still didn't feel full after that. The only thing that stopped me was I was in physical pain. I still didn't feel satisfied though. I felt disgusted. Had I not felt disgusted and in physical pain, I probably could have still kept eating, that blows my mind now looking back. And I'm sure it probably blows a lot of your minds too. I was disgusted with myself every single time I did it afterwards. And even like a couple days afterwards, I didn't want anybody to see me. I didn't want to exist anymore. I literally would lock myself in my bedroom in my apartment and I wouldn't leave. I would turn all the lights off and I would just sleep like for hours and hours and hours. And the only time I would get up is if I had class. And other than that, I would just sleep. So I was like really f***ing depressed. Whew! It gets emotional to talk about. It brings me back. After I would binge every single time, I told myself that's the last time. Like, I'm never ever doing that again. And then I do it again. I just could not control. I couldn't control myself. I felt out of control. That totally makes sense when they say that's part of the disorder, is like you literally feel like you are not in control. When you get the urge to binge, it consumes you. That's all I could think about. Like, if I had a food that I wanted, that I was craving, I would not think about anything else until I got that food. It was just very obsessive. I remember when I would binge, it was like I would zone out. While I was binging, it was like I was in another headspace, like another universe. It was literally like a different reality. It was crazy. I don't know how to explain it. And if you've ever went through it, you know exactly what I mean. Then after it's over, it's like you come back to reality and you're like, fuck, I did it again. You don't even realize that you're doing it while you're doing it. It's insane. I remember I would be with my friends and family and I would leave to eat. Oh my God. It's so I wouldn't even want to be around people because all I could think about was food. When I was with people, I just was thinking about how I was going to binge later. I couldn't think of anything else. It was always on my mind. I would hide from people. I would wait until nighttime when everybody was asleep, and I'd gather a bunch of food and I'd take it all to my room and just binge. I was disgusted looking at myself. I'd never ever wanted to look at myself. Like, I hated my body. I hated it. And God, it's so weird to talk about. I'm not gonna lie, I don't think I've completely processed it yet. I don't know if I should be talking about it yet, but I know this will help somebody, and that's why I am. So the worst time, I can't remember everything that I ate, but afterwards I just remember thinking, maybe I should make myself throw up. That would make everything better, right? It would be like it never happened. I won't gain weight. I realized, shit, this is turning into something really serious. Like, I think this is turning into... hard to talk about. Damn, still all right. I thought it was turning into bulimia, so I told my coach, like, hey man, this is getting really bad, and he recommended I go to therapy, so I did, because they had free therapy on my campus. So if you're in college, you might have that same thing. It took me a while to go to therapy, I'm gonna be real, because I honestly thought I could stop it myself. I didn't realize that binge eating disorder even existed. Like, I had no idea that was even a thing. I just started researching all my symptoms. Every single thing that it described was exactly what I was going through. So I was like, I know this is self-diagnosis, but this is clearly what I have. When I did go to therapy, the first thing she asked was if I was still dieting, and I was. If you're not familiar with competing, a lot of the times after competitors finish a show in their off season, they do reverse dieting. It's pretty much when you're building your calories back up from the deficit so that you don't gain weight too fast, and so that your body has time to adjust instead of just going crazy, eating as much as you want, and then your body's like, what the is going on? So obviously I was not successful at reverse dieting. The fact that I was still counting all my calories, weighing out all my food, tracking all my macros was making it so much worse. I was still restricting myself from what I wanted and depriving myself, which made my brain want it even more. So the first thing she said was stop dieting. So I did. I stopped dieting, and it was really hard because I was worried that if I didn't have any structure, then I would just gain even more weight than I had already gained. But it actually did help. Everything started to go back to normal. Obviously, my hormones started to go back to their base levels. I didn't feel the need as much to have the foods that I couldn't have, because now I could have them, and I did have them. She also explained to me how it's like a cycle. When you have a feeling, it leads to a thought, and it leads to an action, and then the action leads to feeling. It's just a huge cycle, because I felt shitty, so I thought maybe if I binge, I won't feel shitty. So then I would binge, and then I'd feel shitty because I binged, and the cycle continued. She said somewhere we have to find a break in the cycle. I can't remember exactly what we did with that, but I remember we just started incorporating some blocks to the cycle. And I told her a little bit about my background and how I was a bikini competitor, and she said, your life revolves around food instead of food revolving around your life, because that's kind of how it has to be when you're competing. And I was like, yes, that's exactly. Just put it into perspective for me. Just hearing that really helped me for some reason. She told me a quote that I will never ever forget. It's my favorite, one of my favorite quotes of all time. Love what you got while working for what you want. Because I told her I didn't love my body and I wanted to work hard to get the body that I did love back. It did not happen overnight. I did not get better overnight. I honestly kept binging for months. Even after the therapy session, even after it stopped dieting, it lasted for a long time. So you have to be patient with yourself if you're going through it. It took me maybe a year, a couple years to bounce back, but I did bounce back. I'm telling you, I never ever thought I would be where I am today. I did not think there was a way out of it. I felt so hopeless. I remember after it though, it inspired me to want to help people with eating disorders. I actually wanted to become a dietitian. I wanted that to be my field of work, but that ended up not necessarily working out. So if I can help someone through this video, then that's amazing. That's all I want. That's all I want. So I hope this helps somebody. Let's talk about some facts and statistics now. Binge eating disorder is actually the most common eating disorder in America. It often begins in the late teens or early 20s, although it has been reported in both young children and older adults. Approximately 40% of those with binge eating disorder are male, and 3 out of 10 individuals looking for weight loss treatments show signs of binge eating disorder. I just thought those were some interesting facts facts to share. I think they kind of tie in with the next thing I want to talk about, which is the myths. The fact that 40% of those with this disorder are male. That's one of the biggest myths, is people think that only women get eating disorders, and that's far from the truth. In fact, estimates suggest 1/3 to 1/2 of all binge eating disorder cases occur in men. And men are about 5 times more likely to have binge eating disorder than any other eating disorder. Next, everyone who has this disorder is either overweight or obese, and that isn't true either. Some people will burn off the calories that they eat really fast, and other people not so fast. The rate at which calories are burned differs from person to person. That's why some people can have this and still stay pretty thin. And then there's the people that think that it isn't a real disorder just because they think everybody binges. I eat a lot at Christmas time, or yeah, well, I go back for second helpings, like you're just overeating and you can control it. And that's just bullshit. Plenty of people eat a lot on the holidays. For this disorder, it's not just every once in a while. People with this disorder binge once a week for at least 3 months. So that's not your typical overeating. It's a psychiatric disorder. It's in the DSM, which is a manual used to identify mental health conditions. So it's a mental health condition, and it's not something that you can just, oh, you're right, I'm better. Like, it takes a long time. It's so much more complicated than people realize. I think sometimes people really oversimplify things because they don't understand them or they've never been through them. And that's another thing. When I had it, a lot of people assumed that I could just not do it. A lot of people assumed that it wasn't as bad as it was. I don't think that people understand that when you say just stop, it's easy, just stop, that is so much more harmful than it is helpful. That just makes the person you're saying it to feel like shit. You're invalidating them. You're making them feel worse, honestly. Because every single time someone said that to me, I just felt worse. Because I'm like, damn, yeah, why can't I control it? But it's not your fault if you're going through it. That's how people kind of make it seem like it's your own fault, but it's not. There's a way out of it, and that brings me to my final topic of the day, treatments. So if you feel like you can relate to this video, or you've gone through this or are currently going through this, there's a couple different types of treatment out there. There's psychotherapy, which is what I did when you go and talk to somebody about what you're going through. They have different forms of therapy that they might recommend to you. There's cognitive behavioral therapy, interpersonal psychotherapy, dialectical behavior therapy. There's also medications that you can take for it. I don't think that everybody needs it, but if somebody does need it, there's no shame in that. There's nothing to be ashamed of about it. It works well for a lot of people. Some occasions, if an individual is obese, there are weight loss treatments, but they're done highly supervised under professionals. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that for everybody at all, since a lot of the times trying to diet while managing a binge eating disorder just makes it worse. But some people are able to do that. I would never ever recommend someone to try that on their own. If you are considering weight loss treatment and going through a binge eating disorder, I would highly suggest you to see a professional about that. And just in general, I would recommend anybody that's going through this to seek out treatment, and don't feel ashamed for that. It's honestly so strong to do that. It's hard to put yourself out there, especially when you feel like I could just do this on my own. Sometimes you can't, and the strong thing to do is to ask for help. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what we're here for. That's what humans should be doing. We should be here to help each other. I know that therapy is not necessarily financially realistic for a lot of people, but I would recommend looking into your insurance and seeing if they cover any therapists. I know that Psychology Today, that's where I found my therapist, so that website's pretty good. And I'm gonna put links in the description as well for any and all resources. Some research too, so that you guys can learn more about this disorder, more than what I talked about today. I really hope this video was helpful, and today I can happily say that I never get the urge to binge. I haven't had the urge to binge in years. I don't diet at all. I don't track my macros. I don't track my calories. I eat for health now. I eat nutrient-dense foods, and I just try to make sure I'm eating a balanced diet. If I ever am craving something that's unhealthy or bad, I will just have it. I'll have a little bit of it. I don't deprive myself anymore because I learned the hard way that that's not the way to do it. At least not for me. If I could come that far, you could come that far too. I feel like in this wild way, I went through it so that I could help other people with it. I honestly feel that way. I believe everything happens for a reason, and I think that's the reason. You really can come so far. I'm living proof of it. I'm living proof that you're able to overcome this disorder. I promise you, if you're going through it, you can make it through it. I'm sending you so much love, literally so much love, because I wouldn't wish this shit on my worst enemy. No one should have to go through it alone. So that's why I'm here, to let you know you're not alone. You're not alone at all. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like if it was helpful. Share it with somebody who may need it. Don't be scared to ask for help. Comment below your thoughts, questions, concerns. Subscribe if you haven't yet to join the Swole Squad. I feel really weird linking my Patreon in this video, but shout out to my patrons. I'll see you guys on the next one. Have a good ass day.